This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam.
You came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After, now streaming only on Prime.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
There are all these demands placed on us, and the demands are so stringent that a lot of people just throw their hands up in the air and they say, there's no way you can do this any other way than the way that we are asked to play the game. And I try to carve out this middle path, and I say, no, you don't just have to go like get as rich and as wealthy and conventionally successful as you can. That's the normal game to play. And it's not reasonable to be a hardcore dirtbag for more than maybe a certain number of years in your 20s. Either, but there is this middle way that can let you surf the perilous waves of modern capitalism and still retain this spirit of like youthfulness and adventure and a high degree of autonomy over your life.
That is today's guest, Blake Bowles. You're in for a treat with this one. We're talking about this more unconventional lifestyle of being dirtbag rich, and whether you want to go full in on this lifestyle or not. There are a lot of lessons to pull out of this one. You know, travel and the outdoor lifestyle, outdoor adventures has been a huge part of Blake's journey. As you'll hear, the experiences he had and the passion he had for that lifestyle really led to this philosophy of living a life a bit outside of the status quo as somebody who is, quote, dirtbag rich. And as we were prepping for this one, Blake sent over a little talking point he mentioned. He said, I can talk about building a life centered on connection, purpose, and adventure, even if that means not having a normal home, routine, or relationship. And I really think at the heart of it, that's a big part of what we're covering today, that connection, purpose, adventure. Maybe that speaks to you, and it doesn't really matter what term you use, whether you identify with this idea of dirtbag rich that Blake lays out or not. This episode is really about giving you ideas for perhaps creating a new vision for what success means for yourself, what maybe more contentment, a more fulfilling life in some aspects might mean. Of course, how travel might fit into that vision for yourself, and how you can do all that and still exist within the confines of this system, this mainstream economic system that we're all tied to. Speaking of economics, the financial piece of this lifestyle is, of course, a real challenge, and we're going to get some practical advice around how to handle that aspect of building an unconventional lifestyle.
I need to figure out how to have it all. Like, I need to figure out how to do work that I really enjoy, that makes enough money, that also doesn't monopolize me full time. And I really think that the money and the time aspects are intricately connected here.
You'll hear how Blake figured out the financial piece for himself, and of course, advice on how you can too. How to know when you're wealthy, drawing that line between continuing to work and earn money versus perhaps getting outside, traveling, and living that lifestyle you want. Why to embrace the idea of, quote, downward mobility. The question of, is this just indulging in hedonism, or is there more to a lifestyle like this? The real risks of the dirtbag rich lifestyle, advice for finding your purpose within this framework, and a ton more going on in this episode. Whether you're considering a more unconventional path, perhaps you're already living one, maybe you're a bit curious about some of the alternatives to the work until you retire model. This conversation offers a ton of ideas and perspectives and practical strategies, so I hope you're able to pull out what you need right now. And let's dive into it. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
What's up, Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. BlakeBowles.com is where you can find all of the links to everything we talk about today in terms of Blake's work. Of course, his book, Dirtbag-Rich, High Freedom, Low Income, Deep Purpose. You can check that out as well. And don't forget, we have a newsletter, ZeroToTravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up. It's free. You can join the community off the pod there. I share some personal stories, some helpful travel links, and so on in that free newsletter. And now let's dive in. If you want to stick around on the back end of this conversation, I'm going to share one of my big takeaways, something that Blake mentioned in this interview that I think is worth highlighting one more time as you come out of this, if you want some food for thought to go about your day with. For now, please enjoy my conversation with Blake Bowles. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. Blake Bowles, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friends.
Jason, it's really good to be back.
You're in the right spot. I mean, I would say one of the biggest themes of this show over hundreds of shows and many years, if not the biggest, is unconventional lifestyles. Really, at the heart of it, right? You're talking about long-term travel, being nomadic, figuring out ways that you can maybe get more freedom from the work you do to squeeze more travel into your life, whatever. Like a lot of it, you can boil it down to sort of maybe more unconventional lifestyles. That's one thing that at least we've talked about a lot on the show. So you have this new book, Dirtbag-Rich, which is, I don't know, sometimes I forget we're in a bubble, man. Like, you know, it feels like, doesn't feel super unconventional to me, but I guess from a status quo perspective, it is.
You're definitely in a bubble.
Well, I want to start with the question you pose on page 10, which is, how does one participate in capitalism without losing mind, body, and soul? I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just jump right in right there.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I think the word dirtbag is not familiar to a lot of people. I'm on the East Coast of the US at the moment. And when I use this word or tell people about the book title, they're like, oh, dirtbag, you mean like scummy, reprehensible people? That's the dictionary definition. And it is. Look it up. Yeah. And so I have to remember that dirtbag is more of a Western US term for someone who does what they love, usually in the outdoors, nearly full time, and has really creative and sometimes countercultural ways of making the finances of their life work in order to rock climb all the time, or to backpack all the time, or travel or dance all the time. There's many ways to be a dirtbag. But what I try to emphasize in the book is that this purest vision of being a dirtbag, of just really doing what you love all the time, which could include traveling the world all the time, or it could be like kayaking all the time, is really not that reasonable. And it's not, because we do live in this world, which you could call the globalized capitalist order, in which there are all these demands placed on us. And the demands are so stringent that a lot of people just throw their hands up in the air and they say, there's no way you can do this any other way than the way that we are asked to play the game. And I try to carve out this middle path, and I say, no, you don't just have to go like get as rich and as wealthy and conventionally successful as you can. That's the normal game to play. And it's not reasonable to be a hardcore dirtbag for more than maybe a certain number of years in your 20s either. But there is this middle way that can let you surf the perilous waves of modern capitalism and still retain this spirit of like youthfulness and adventure and a high degree of autonomy over your life. And that is what I'm trying to argue for in the book. That's what I've been trying to live in my own life. And I interviewed a few dozen people who are doing it in their own way also. So it's not just one guy's story.
Yeah. And I love that you weave in some of the stories there. And I've certainly interviewed some quote unquote dirtbags as well. I should mention, well, we'll link up to the book and everything, but just the official title, Dirtbag-Rich, High Freedom, Low Income, Deep Purpose. That does matter, the origin of the term. I'm familiar with it, having lived in Colorado and knowing there was this subculture of climbers back in the day called dirtbags, and that's just kind of how they referred to their culture. They would like be living at Yosemite and climbing rock walls all day and basically living their best life, doing the thing that they love almost all the time. I guess you could take that same term and apply it to like the surf bum or the ski bum or, same kind of like bum, dirtbag,
It's all a version of the dirtbag.
Yeah.
And that's why those rock climbers in Yosemite in the 60s and 70s, they actually were called dirtbags because people thought they were bums. And from a certain point of view, they are bums in the same way that a surf bum or a ski bum or a long-term traveler is a bum. And so it's this reclaiming of a negative term when someone is essentially saying, listen, you've dropped out of the mainstream economic system and the assumption is you're not pulling your weight. And to reclaim that term and say, I am a ski bum or I am a dirtbag is this act of, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's some act of great rebellion or revolution. There is a very self-centered and hedonistic aspect to living this way. But that's why I have purpose as the third pillar of being dirtbag rich, because I really think that is not sustainable either. Being completely self-focused on your amazing outdoor and travel goals. No, you need to be in relationship to other people. That's what a long-term sustainable lifestyle looks like, is give and take and meaningful contribution, not just gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're going to talk about purpose. That's definitely on my list, purpose and meaning and that aspect of it. Of course, there can be the hedonic treadmill aspect of it as well. Let's face it, if you're living a multi-decade dirtbag rich lifestyle like you've been, I would say, if that's fair to say, right? Like many, many years kind of living with that deep purpose and sort of finding your way through an unconventional path outside of that mainstream economic system that you mentioned, then there are probably going to be chunks of that maybe a bit of hedonism is necessary in our life journey to kind of get those lessons and understand. And maybe that partially leads to some of our purpose. I know perhaps it has in my life.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah. It's hard to drop out of the mainstream economic system because we still have to exist within the parameters of it, right? And I think that was one of the big topics I wanted to cover today is the money, whether it's the money mindset or the actual money. Probably the biggest thing, either from a mindset perspective or just an economics perspective, that may be preventing people from chasing a dream, whether it's money worries, money troubles, like it's the practicalities of paying for insurance and things like that. And I know you have some actual practical advice around this. So, for somebody listening that they're like, I want to embrace this lifestyle or some aspect of it, or maybe the ethos of it, let's say, right? Like what is your best advice for the money side of things where you can still live with purpose, live your passion, kind of live this unconventional lifestyle? And then also I want to get into your story a bit because I think your story illustrates some of these points, but actually maybe that's a good jumping off point. Maybe you can use some of your personal experience and stories to kind of teach some of these lessons.
Sure, I'll try to answer all of that.
That was a multi-tiered question. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. Shame on me.
No. I mean, my experience is I am very well qualified to be an outdoor educator and a summer camp guy. These are not high-paying professions. These are, service industry positions where you go work with kids in the outdoors and you take them hiking, you teach them some skills, teach them some science. Mostly you're working for someone else. And what's cool about outdoor education and summer camps is that you get to save all the money that you've earned. And often you're getting room and board when you're working for these organizations. So it's great. You get to walk away and you've got a couple $1,000 saved up and you're like, cool, you can do something with that. But then pretty soon you've got to get right back into the employment cycle. And after college, I was trying to make it work in the the world of outdoor education, and I just kept getting frustrated and quitting my jobs. I did not have enough autonomy. I didn't have enough free time. I really loved the work, but it even though it was like very countercultural, it was a bit too much of a grind for me. And so I ran away to South America for 3 months, a story I detail in the book, and kind of came back and figured I have to figure out how to do, I need to figure out how to have it all. Like I need to figure out how to do work that I really enjoy, that makes enough money, that also doesn't monopolize me full time. And I really think that the money and the time aspects are intricately connected here, because I think there's plenty of people who can figure out how to make a good amount of money to pay for your health insurance and all your other basic cost of living expenses. But then you're working all the time. And how can you make a good amount of money in a brief amount of time and then still allow yourself to be really free as a bird, whether this is on a daily schedule, a weekly schedule, a monthly schedule. And so what I ended up doing was starting this travel company for teenagers called Unconventional. And I would work my butt off for periods of 4 to 8 weeks running these group travel programs. And then everyone would come home and all of the teenagers would go back to their own, faraway homes. And I would have my personal life back, and I would have whatever money I had managed to make on that trip. And the very first trip I ran to Argentina in 2008, my co-leader and I each made $4,000 from working 6 weeks, and all of our expenses were paid during that time. And I just thought this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because that was like a huge amount of money for me in 2008. And then pretty soon I was able to budget better and to like increase the group size a little bit without losing the good vibes. And then I was able to run a trip and make $10,000 from working 6 weeks. And all of a sudden I was like, oh man, this could actually be something I could continue doing. And so I've been doing that for 17 years now, and just running 1 or 2 trips a year. And for me, these trips are still very like intense but joyous moments in my life. It's kind of like I'm doing what I do best, which is I'm wrangling highly independent teenagers in a foreign country. We're working together to co-create this experience. I only work with teenagers who really want to be there. They have to interview to be on these trips. They're not like kids who are being forced to be there, or rich kids who are just being shuttled between one of these kinds of opportunities to the next. And so I love it. And I love the fact that it doesn't take up very much of my time, so that I can actually spend the money that I've made in the way that I want to, because I don't have to be anywhere else. And so that's led me to live in Europe the past couple of years and focus on partner dance. I've done a lot of international cycling adventures in recent years. Farther in the past, it was trail running and backpacking. And so a lot of my adventures are connected to the outdoors, not all of them. Dancing is a very city, very urban experience. And so this is just my example of how to like make a good amount of money without it monopolizing all your time. And to be clear, I am still low income. Like I make a good amount of money relevant to my energy and time investment, but I'm not working full time. I pretty much work 15 hours a week if you average it over the year. And and I'll reinvest some of that time in writing, and some of the writing I've done makes me some money. Sometimes it's not a lucrative profession. And so there's a bit of that. It's not like I'm just sitting around and doing nothing for those other months of the year. There's other people who have more normal jobs, who are like nurses, who work as public school educators, people who are guides, who are photographers, people who live on boats. There are just many different ways to do this. But yeah, there's no clear blueprint or path. It's really a complicated personal endeavor. But it's one that still can be charted out. And the book that charted it out didn't exist. And that's the book I wanted to read in my 20s. And so here I am, age 43, finally getting around to writing it.
I love that. I mean, that's how this podcast started. It was the thing I wish I had when I was starting out. So I mean, that's kind of I love that about the intentionality behind the book. And I love that you say there's no real blueprint, although in the book you share a lot of principles and stories and examples that illustrate the points you make. But I think far too often in the internet age, it's like, people are looking for the blueprint or the thing, or they pitch you the blueprint or the thing that's going to give you X, Y, or Z. And life's a little more complicated than that, let's say.
Yeah.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I really enjoy the planning stage of a trip, piecing together that itinerary that sets you up for this epic travel experience. You probably already know that travel advisors actually earn a living planning trips for others doing that exact thing, but what you might not know is how easy it is for you to take your travel planning skills and earn income from them by planning vacations for others with Fora. Fora is a modern travel agency built for people who love to plan travel and help others travel well. Their tech platform, training, and community give you everything you need to turn your passion for travel planning into a flexible, meaningful stream of income. No need to figure everything out on your own with a Fora subscription. Everything you need to run a travel business lives under one roof. You can finally turn your passion for travel into a fulfilling business with Fora. Become a Fora advisor today at foratravel.com/0to-travel. That's Fora, F-O-R-A travel.com/0to-travel. Make sure you tell them we sent you, foratravel.com/0to-travel.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Now, back to the show.
Well, let me ask you about a couple overarching things that do apply to your story, and I think to the greater conversation around money. First of all, and I want to unpack some of these things from the story you just told with your business. The first question is, how do you determine what is enough, and how do you draw the line? Like, you could run more trips every year. You could make more money. Your book could be called, Dirtbag-Rich, High Freedom, High Income, Deep Purpose, right?
High everything.
You're just getting high over there, man. How do you advise people that want to protect their time in between, which is the whole point of this, to draw the line, to say enough is enough, like to find that line for themselves, I suppose?
There's a section in the book titled, How Do You Know When You're Wealthy? And I think it's a super interesting question. And I think it's something that we see when people actually become financially very well off. And then you see that even at that moment, this mythological moment, you have your number, you have...
I have $1 million in the bank.
Or 10 million, whatever it might be today. And then they are incapable of continuing, of ceasing to work. It's just like, it's another chance to like keep grinding on something else. I think this is the thing that doesn't get talked about in like the financial independence, retire early community, which is that it's fun to like try to just make as much money as you can in some high paying job with this goal of like, okay, I'm going to get to this number and then I'm going to retire at age 34. And then what? But what you've done from age 22 to 34 is you have just ingrained certain habits in your life on a day-to-day basis. And so what you have really done during that time is you've learned how to grind hard and how to make a ton of money. And those are your skills. I mean, those are the grooves you have etched in your soul. And so to try to step away from that is actually very difficult, I think. And so how do you know when enough is enough? How do you know when you're wealthy? The way that I lay it out in the book is, you know, you're wealthy when you have both depth and quality of relationships. Like the number of relationships that you have is deeply satisfying and meaningful to you. And that's also something else that gets lost when people are in the grind mindset. which is friendships drop to the side, kind of romantic relationships maybe get taken down a notch. If you have kids, that can be a tricky dance also. Another one that I focus on is nights slept under the stars. And so this doesn't have to be literally like how often are you sleeping out or camping out, but just choose another like emotional or aesthetic metric that might fit your own life. And in the book, I talk about when I was trail running a lot in Lake Tahoe for some summers, I decided not to record my runs using Strava or using these typical, like, how fast did you go kind of metrics, but instead, how beautiful was the run, how novel was it, and how much stoke or how much enthusiasm did I feel from each run. And like, those are the things that matter, not a fastest known time or a personal best. Other ways you can know is like how much good you've done in the world. That's a tricky one because we always like to think that we are the heroes in the story. And historical perspective is a big one also, which is just not, and this is where you get off of the keeping up with the Jones or the hedonic treadmill, which is just saying like, okay, compared to someone 50 years ago or 100 years ago in my similar like broad socioeconomic situation. So don't imagine that you're the royalty, from the Middle Ages, but just imagine you are some person somewhere in the middle of society. Like, how comfortable am I and how much do I enjoy? And the answer is you probably are extremely comfortable and enjoy a lot. But that's a tricky thing because everyone else just can, looking to their left and to their right and thinking, what does everyone else around me have? And for you to like project a little bit farther and think like, what about my grandparents? What kind of life were they living? Oh my gosh, they didn't have this. It's a bit of a thought experiment, but I find it's a very productive one.
I agree. I thought about, and not just looking to your left or right, but looking online and comparing yourself to these snapshots of somebody's life, which is not representative of their whole life either. Let's face it. Yeah, and I mean, speaking of social media, you can often say it'd be like social media for your business, the equivalent, right? Like the vanity metrics are the metrics, like how many likes did I get and stuff like that. But maybe the real metric is, how many actual clients did I get from this, for my business, from like using a business analogy. You talking about the run, saying, okay, maybe it's not about how fast and this and that, but how nice was it? How much did I? It's just a way to reframe the way you measure things, which obviously changes your approach to it. I mean, a lot of this stuff I feel like a lot of this is also your mindset. Like if you're, and to go from the sort of the mindset, the sort of traditional mindset to the mindset of the dirtbag-rich, that can be a pretty big chasm to cross, let's say. One of the things when we were talking about this conversation that you sent over is this idea of downward mobility. Perhaps that's a mindset you can share that sort of relates to that question.
Yeah, I had my friend Brendan Leonard, who runs the website semirad.com and does these really fun line drawing illustrations. He did 6 illustrations for the book, and one of them says, comparing yourself to your rich neighbors. And it shows the difference between amount of money that your rich neighbors have and then the amount of freedom that your rich neighbors have. And it's trying to argue that if you have to make a comparison between yourself and the metaphorical Joneses, then optimize for freedom or optionality, whatever you want to call it. So even if you are making less money than the neighbors or your friends or your parents, and I really think the parents are the one that everyone gets hung up on. We have this idea that you need to be better off than your parents in order to feel like you have some basic dignity or you are somehow making it in the world. And you see this in major news, they're like real wages have remained stagnant since 1980, a headline like that. And to me, this is not necessarily a cause for alarm. Maybe to a macroeconomist it is. But I think, am I enjoying my life and getting to do all the things I want to do? Yes. Can this be true at the same time that I am making less money and accruing less financial wealth and equity than my parents did? Yes. Am I going to be homeless? Am I going to actually end up destitute because of whatever path I'm on? I think it's very, very unlikely. You can never say no for sure, but I think that that's also very unlikely. As long as those three conditions are true, then like everything's fine. You can make less money, you can be relatively poor, and you can still be an incredibly wealthy and happy and healthy member of, probably this very advanced, globalized society that you're a member of. There's all these further questions of kind of international opportunity and like who can even consider doing something like dirtbag-rich, who can even consider being able to make a large amount of money in a short amount of time. If you are from Argentina, for example, where I've spent a lot of time, it's a challenging thing to pull that off. And maybe within the context of Argentina, you could live dirtbag rich. But if you want to go travel internationally, all of a sudden you're going to get hit with the reality of how much more expensive things are outside of your home country and your home currency. And so this is certainly not something I say that everyone in the world can do, or everyone even in the United States or Western European countries can do. But it's something that some of us need to seriously consider if we feel like we do not fit into the normal working system, the normal globalized capitalist order, because if we try to fit into that system, then we witness our mental health spiraling downwards. We witness ourselves saying, why are we inside on this sunny day in this box under these fluorescent lights looking at this glowing rectangle when like I could be out there going for a walk or a run or a cycle or just out there meeting people? Someone needs to offer ways that are different. And this is one of many ways that are different that you can walk if you feel like you don't fit in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I appreciate that because the acknowledgement that, this is maybe not something everybody can pull off, but giving a framework for that option for those that resonate with this. Did you struggle at all with the title? Like, I don't know. I'm, one of my sort of personal beliefs is that the things you say can obviously work their way into your subconscious and could perhaps, I don't want to use the word manifest themselves, but whatever intentionality you put out there, it can get baked into the physical world and how you actually execute and live your life. And so if you're embracing all those three pillars, are you setting yourself up to like maybe not have financial independence later just by using that term? Do you know what I mean? Did you struggle with that at all?
No.
No.
No, not at all. No, I think it's good not to be locked into a low income path. And that's why I really try to make it clear that you need to develop some sort of skills or become useful to some group of people that does allow you to earn a good amount of money relative to your efforts, whether it's an hourly thing, whether it's a gig-based thing. And that is a lever that you can press down in times where you do perhaps need to earn more money. I'd say that is a really important security aspect to this lifestyle. And that's what I was running away from was being locked into like lower income service jobs where I'm always working for someone else. Someone else is dictating the terms, and I have to like fight to get some measly raise. That is a realm that did not feel like one that would lead to long-term security for me. And unfortunately, that is the realm that a lot of people are locked into. There's the how much money you earn and how much money you spend part of this. I think there's already lots of good advice out there about how to be thrifty, about how to spend less. And so I didn't dwell too much on that in the book, but rather how can you have, whether you are traditionally employed or you're self-employed, how can you have this very flexible lever of making a good amount of money that you can choose to push down on when you want to, but mostly you don't need to because you are out there enjoying all the free time that you have since you're not pushing down on the grind and earn lever that frequently.
Well, I mean, because it's such a big topic, we'll stay on money a little bit longer. Then I want to talk about purpose and being self-employed versus being an entrepreneur. Both have their own challenges. Both have their own pros and cons. Within the context of this lifestyle, do you think that entrepreneurship is a path that makes it easier to pull off this lifestyle? And I don't mean that I don't mean that to say that it's easy. I mean that it's easier to pull off this lifestyle. And do you think entrepreneurship is something that everybody can get into?
Yes, it's absolutely easier. And I think at least the spirit of entrepreneurship is required to make something like this happen. And to me, that means you need to feel like you are on equal negotiating ground with your employer, if you have an employer. And to feel that way, you actually need to be on equal negotiating ground. You need to be able to walk away and find other clients, other people to work with if necessary. And so this does put a lot of responsibility on you to just become, valuable, badass, talented enough to warrant these kinds of higher pay. How you then negotiate with an employer for time off, that's a very, I think, specific topic that I don't personally have enough experience with. I chronicle some people who have done that or who got lucky, like Hannah, who I profile in the book. She works for Seattle Public Schools, and she just discovered, combing through her employment contract, that she was entitled to 1 full year off with job security, not paid time off, but just like you can come back in a year and have your job after every 3 years that she works, sort of like double sabbatical. And she said, I am definitely going to exploit this. And she went on this, cycling around the world trip for a full year. And now she's back in Seattle and working again. And she's planning her next around the world cycling trip for her next year off. And so sometimes you just have to be really diligent in seeing what has already been promised to you in the terms of employment.
Yeah. And for younger folks, I think that, that can be a lens through which you make your career decisions in some ways, right? Like, am I putting myself into a situation where I can get this time off, whether it's contract work or, as you mentioned, something like a teacher where you can take sabbaticals and things of that nature. One of the things that you said and that I read in your book about your business that I just wanted to highlight because I think it's important is the ability to attract the ideal client and actually work with the people you want to work with. You mentioned really briefly the sort of the application process and the vetting, and that's the reason why, like you said, you're not getting like these rich kids that go from one of these experiences to there's a certain type of kid that comes on your trips because you've set it up in a way that's how it happens. Can you just talk about if somebody is looking for some advice on figuring out or attracting their ideal sort of client or their ideal situation in terms of who they're working with, just your best lessons you've learned over the years about that?
Yeah, I think the principle is both parties should feel absolutely psyched and enthused to be working with each other.
Right. It's not a one-way street.
No, and that means that your client, whoever that might be, in my case, it's teenagers who have chosen not to go to school, they need to feel like they are really getting a special opportunity to get to work with you. And so to some extent, this means you need to be doing something that's niche enough or special enough that there's probably just not a lot of competition. And in my case, there have been a few other people who have offered international travel programs for teenagers who don't go to school, but they've mostly faded away. And I've kind of ended up being the only game in town. I don't think that's exactly a monopoly. Like there's lots of other opportunities for teenagers to pay to go do extracurricular type stuff for travel programs. But what I've created are these trips where you have this like really adventurous and like very proactively risk-taking environment that's paired with a lot of warmth and inclusion. And so this is kind of the vibe of the unschooling community. And so that's this like special thing that I have to offer. And at the same time, this special vibe is created because I'm only taking teenagers who, first of all, know what they're signing up for. So when they do an interview with me before they can pay the money to join a trip, they need to tell me, like, why do you want to come on this specific trip? Why right now at this moment in your life? They also need to have done something, at least in some small way, that will prepare them for going away for 6 weeks, for example. Like, have you been to summer camp? Have you gone to stay with grandma for a week? Have you just been away from like the comfort and security and routine of home for at least a little while? And finally, they just need to prove that they're like not assholes. Right? I'm a big fan of that no assholes rule, just in general, just broadly speaking. And so if you do that, if you bring together a group who know why they're there, they want to be there, they're prepared to be there, and they're not assholes, then, I mean, that's 95% of the work right there. You're just assembling the team. It's like the Marvel superheroes team. We're going to defeat the bad guys no matter what. Yeah.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Are you looking for a smarter way to start your day? Always a good thing, right? Morning Brew Daily breaks down the biggest news in business every morning, fitting seamlessly into your day. Hosts Neil Fryman and Toby Howell cover everything from the latest tech headlines to why nobody can afford a house right now. And their approach actually makes morning news fun. What a great concept. You'll leave each episode of Morning Brew Daily smarter and ready to take on the world around you, whether you're commuting, exercising, getting ready for the day. Maybe you're out there traveling the world somewhere. Either way, Morning Brew Daily makes it easy to make sense of the world of business. You can find out what millions of listeners already know. Business news doesn't have to be boring. Tune into Morning Brew Daily every weekday morning, wherever you get your podcasts. That's Morning Brew Daily, available every weekday morning, wherever you get your podcasts.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Now, back to the show. Of course, big pillar of purpose and meaning on, I can't remember what page it was, but you said, quote, the ultimate goal of becoming dirtbag-rich is to enjoy a truly deep sense of purpose or meaning in life. That being the ultimate goal, can you share some advice on finding that, identifying that, and I think like this is interesting to ask you this because, well, first of all, this can evolve over time,
Absolutely.
And you work with young people. So sometimes there can be a lot of pressure around that. If you think about finding your purpose or your meaning, was that, if I decided, am I going to have to sort of pursue that for the rest of my life? I'm going to have to like build my whole life around this. And, so how do we release the pressure valve on that? But also, roll with something that acts as the foundation for this or any other unconventional lifestyle.
I think I want to take it back to travel and also to the outdoors for a second here. We'll start with the outdoors. I was hiking the Tahoe Rim Trail back in 2021, which takes about 9 days. You hike in a circle around Lake Tahoe. It's beautiful. And for a stretch of that, you are overlapping with the Pacific Crest Trail, the trail that people hike for 5 months from Mexico to Canada. And the way that I was going around Lake Tahoe, I was actually hiking in the opposite direction. I was going south when most of the Pacific Crest Trail through hikers were hiking north. And I've had this long-term love affair with the Pacific Crest Trail. I started hiking it when I was 22, and I quit after 3 weeks, and that sent me into a bit of a crisis. But I love the idea of it. And what I saw hiking south as all this pack of through hikers was going north, what kind of dismayed me, actually. I saw a number of hikers who appear to be like clocking into their day jobs, like did not appear to be filled up with the romantic enthusiasm of someone spending their time, in the beautiful mountains of California, but instead just like, okay, I've signed up for this 5-month grueling trek, and I'm not even halfway through it.
I'm gonna knock it out.
Yeah, and it's just like I got to get my 30 miles in today. And of course, I could be projecting. This is, I had minimal interactions with them. But it's in the same way that you're walking down a busy street at 8:30 in the morning, and you see people commuting, and you just get this sense of like a bit of like, latent stress and like, oh, here I am again. And so that is one thing that I think that we can forget about, which is, if you commit to some big thing in the beginning that seems deeply purposeful, like, you're allowed to get off it at some point.
You're allowed to quit.
You are allowed to quit. Something else in the travel realm, when I witness people saying, well, just if anyone starts the conversation, like, how many countries have you been to? I'm just like immediately on guard.
You're like, I gotta go.
Like, I'm sure they have fine motives, but it's the same thing that happens when someone says like, oh, have you done Prague? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I actually kind of resent the implication that there is a way to do a city, or to go to a country and check that off your box. This whole like turning everything into a list to be checked off or somehow to be measured. I don't envy anyone who's trying to visit every country in the world. That sounds like a miserable undertaking to me. And actually, mostly you will spend your time and your money dealing with like strange visa hurdles and like the inability to get to small island nations. And I just think that's not, I want to be focusing on like building relationships with people. I want to be focusing on doing cool stuff in the outdoors and dancing and writing. Like, that's the purpose for me. So how do you find this in your own life? Jeez. I mean, this is why religions are created, right? I don't have strong answers in this realm, Jason. I think that the best thing I can offer is like, it when you wake up in the morning and you're thinking like, okay, what is about to happen today? And for me, I've always wanted to avoid this feeling of Groundhog Day, like the movie with Bill Murray from the 90s, where you wake up and you have this like clear sense of like all the motions you're going to go through for the rest of the day. Like, I want there to be surprises. I want there to be adventure. If it's a good day, I want there to be some ecstasy and some transcendence. Like, I have fairly high goals, fairly high standards for my day. And if you are waking up feeling a bit sick to your stomach about where you have to go and what you have to do, and this applies to kids in school, this applies to people with jobs, then I think that is the indicator that you are missing the mark on purpose, at least this morning. In the book, the way that I summarize it is, how many days are I get to do this days versus I have to do this days. And you just want to maximize for waking up and feeling like, oh, cool, I get to do this today. Even if that means like, I get to go work my butt off doing something that's going to be really hard and grueling, but like, wow, this is my kind of suffering. That is the correct approach. People can be on vacation. They can be on very expensive vacations, and they can wake up and say, okay, I have to go sit by the pool. I have to socialize with these people I'm not very excited to see. You can be in the lap of luxury and still be stuck in I have to. And so this for me is the best way I can distill how to measure purpose and how to optimize for purpose. It's extremely personal, but you definitely know it when you feel it. And it's not the same thing as just like fun or happiness or pleasure or hedonism or what might look like you doing something meaningful. Very personal thing.
So how many countries have you been to? I'm just kidding.
Jesus,
I'm just kidding.
Jason.
I'm kidding. But we are going to ask about some of your travels and adventures, and I want to get some tips on outdoor adventuring around the world. And I know you've done a lot of this stuff, so I do want to get your advice there. Before we get into all that, a few more things around this. Well, since the word freedom has come up a few times, and then I remember before you said freedom or optionality. whatever you want to call it. Actually, I'm wondering for you, is word choice like that? Is it semantics or is it actually matter in terms of how you choose your words? That's just like a sort of a sidebar question. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I think it's semantics. I've been running a workshop for teenagers recently called How to Be Free. And it's a deep dive exploration into what this word means and trying to go beyond just the more broadly used like political or big picture version of it and talk about physical or embodied freedom, which is a lot of what I've learned through the world of dance. And then also social or relational freedom, which is like the freedom to like have deep connections with other people. And I feel like that's a freedom that many people don't feel like they have. They feel like there's this barrier, or almost this like jail cell, this wall between them and other people. And they're not sure how to escape that cage.
Because they don't have the ability to open to it in that way?
Sure, or have not, had the privilege of being exposed to the right tools or communities where people are modeling this kind of behavior. And so, yeah, this is all part and parcel with what purpose is, what freedom is, why I want to put the word freedom and purpose in the subtitle of the book, and why I think that is the stuff that matters so much more than money. And this is the reason for freeing up our time, is so that we can pursue ever deeper layers of purpose and freedom. So yes, I will use the cheesy and definitely overwrought term freedom very liberally, because I feel like once you peel back some of the more superficial layers, like that is the good stuff. That's what we're here for.
Got it. A little bit of a selfish question, since you have so much experience with unschooling and alternative schools and alternative education. Your best advice around that for parents? I'm a parent who, like, I love that idea, but I also don't have the drive to do homeschooling. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, for better or worse, my kids are going to school, and there's some things I don't like about that, especially given the amount of conversations I've had like this around sort of unconventional lifestyle, having lived unconventional lifestyles myself. I've been exposed to a lot. So my bubble with that is pretty large. So I know what's possible, and I want my children to think freely, and I want them to be exposed to some of that stuff. Right now, though, the situation is a little bit, I don't need to get into all because it's one person's personal situation. But I was thinking about this as I was going into this. I wonder for somebody like me who has that ethos and respect and openness towards alternative schooling, but not necessarily the time or the drive to like be their teacher. What's the balance we can do to kind of instill some of those values? Maybe you could talk about some of the values from those communities, why you're so passionate about them, and then what can sort of like the regular parent do to kind of instill those values without like spending a year taking their kid around the world, which is something I want to do, by the way, but haven't been able to yet, or spending 8 hours a day tutoring them or whatever the case is.
I would say the first step is to go listen to our previous interviews on Zero to Travel, where we talk more explicitly about alternative education. Second step is to immediately dissuade yourself of the notion that you need to be your kid's teacher. And I think that becomes an increasingly more ridiculous proposal as they get older, and the realm of potential knowledge and experience to them just blossoms. Finally, these communities, the unschooling communities, self-directed learning centers, this alternative school where I'll be speaking, there's lots of different ways that they go about this, but there's a huge emphasis on freedom paired with responsibility. And I think that is something that gets lost in these discussions about liberating kids from an oppressive school environment. And there's plenty of oppressive school environments out there. There's also plenty of like really wonderful, delightful, supportive school environments out there. And the same kid who hates school one day might come back the next week and be like, oh, school was awesome. And the next year might be like, oh, this doesn't work for me. And, it can change so frequently. But the freedom aspect of it is important. The freedom to feel like you're not being constrained by a curriculum, like you're not being oppressed by a bunch of teachers and administrators, that you can collaborate freely with your friends. But with that comes this personal responsibility to like suffer the consequences of you wasting your time. For example, if you just sit around and you scroll on Instagram or TikTok, the philosophy of unschooling would say, okay, the kid needs to experience what it feels like to be that lost and miserable. And today, in the culture of like being very proactive about mental health, that's something that I don't believe gets allowed to happen because we can see how destructive it can be. And so there's and this happens in the realm of youth travel also, or activities at school. You're not allowed to fall that far. You're not allowed to take risks that could lead to more serious injury or illness or abduction, because we want to prevent the worst things from happening. And in one way, that's wonderful. That's social progress right there. That's protecting the rights of children. And in another way, it's really aberrant from history, from the long tradition of adolescence. Essentially, as soon as you hit puberty in your society, you are asked to start fulfilling quite real adult roles and to take on real responsibilities and to suffer consequences if you don't fulfill those responsibilities. And that whole role has been taken away from children, not just adolescents, but younger children also. This also has to do with just pure demographic stuff, like falling family sizes. You don't have children caring for their siblings as much as was historically the norm. And so children have entered into this world where even highly schooled children, they enjoy an incredible amount of freedom and like an incredibly low debt of responsibility. And so I actually don't see this as like a schooled versus an unschooled thing per se. I think that unschooling or getting out of the conventional school system is one potential path to like rebalancing this freedom and responsibility thing. And that's, when families take their kids traveling, or they go live on a sailboat for a while, or these other kind of grand adventures you might read about. In the book, I profile a family who went on long-term bicycle tours with their 2 young sons. I think what we all intuitively understand about what makes those kinds of experiences so awesome is that now the kids are not just in like the safety and predictability of the home environment and the safety and predictability and the artificiality of the school environment, where kind of everything can be gamed. We're seeing this with discussions about AI and homework and essays right now. But instead, they're out there and they're coming much more face to face with the so-called real world, where like you need to speak Spanish to the person in Guatemala who you're buying something from, where like you are on. I saw this French family cycling the Carretera Austral, which is this beautiful but very rugged gravel road through southern Chile, right through the heart of the Andes. And they had 4 kids, and 3 of those kids were on their own bikes, and I think the youngest one was like 7. And like they were going over some gnarly terrain. And this is what outdoor and experiential education can be. It's like you take kids backpacking, like on an outward bound trip. And if that kid like forgets to bring an essential piece of gear, or they make a mistake and they fall off the trail, it's like the consequences are clear and imminent. And that is the responsibility aspect of it. When you're on a sailboat, it's like you need to contribute to the sailing of this boat. We all have a role to play here. And so this part of growing up, of actually having like some consequences, and I'm not using that in the disciplinarian sense, that I am careful about that word, but having like real consequences for actions that are tied to personal responsibility, that whole aspect is a rare bird these days, Jason. So that's what I'm here for. And I think that ties back to the dirtbag-rich thing about finding this kind of entrepreneurial niche for yourself, and about trying to live like a lower income life and outside of the system. It's like you can have all this freedom, and yes, it's going to come with the very real and often very scary debt of responsibility that hopefully you're doing this in a way that you can pick up the pieces if you do fall down, And I'm careful to profile people in the book who are not just able to live this way, this high freedom way, because they're enabled by family money or trust funds or wealthy spouses or something like that. Nothing against anyone who's in that situation. It's just I wanted to like have a certain kind of equal level playing field for people who appeared in the book, so that I know that they are like aware of the consequences of like making a wrong decision.
Speaking of the consequences, one of the things I appreciated is that you do acknowledge some of those stakes at the end in regards to this lifestyle, I should say. I'll just read a little bit. The dirtbag-rich deal is this: try to have it all now, deep purpose, spacious time, and sufficient money, at the risk of having less money and perhaps more problems later in life. If you fail badly in your dirtbag-rich ambitions, you may end up relying on family, government, or a romantic partner. You may live in a trailer, work at a big box retail, or face daily indignities. That more diligent adults, those who sucked it up and did what they must, consider humiliating. The risks are real. The dirtbag-rich deal is not for everyone.
I think that you're placing a calculated bet if you take a path like this, and it's a bet against this old age utopia, this mythology of retirement, and this idea that you just like work your ass off for 40 plus years and you make money, and then you are able to then recoup your investment in the form of time and purpose, lots of free time to go birding or take cruises or whatever it might be, and finding some purpose because you finally get to like follow your interests in an uninhibited way in this period of time called retirement. And I am not going to say that this is pure mythology. I've met plenty of very happily retired people, and that's great if you have like a deeply meaningful and lucrative career as an adult, and then you are able to retire and do all this other stuff. Wonderful. That's
you don't have your young
life.
Body anymore.
You don't. and so that's why I'm saying this book is written for like people with a certain set of like neuroses and hangups that are similar to me. Like my neurosis is I cannot abide being inside for very long on nice days. I need to be outside and able to like move my body, especially through nature. I want to be trail running. I want to be swimming. I want to be cycling. I want to use my body now while it is functional, and I want to maintain its function. And the longer that I sit in a freaking chair in front of a desk, and as a writer, I just end up doing this too long sometimes. And I hate myself for that. I try to find ways to avoid it. That is my version of like hell on earth right now. I would much rather have this like very active, very engaged, very purposeful life at a lower income level. And I've had a number of people be like, you realize that this means you're going to get less Social Security benefits when you're older, right? Because your reported income now is tied to how much money you'll get later.
We don't even know if it'll exist. There's no guarantees,
I accept that proviso also. But I say, yes, I do recognize this.
Yeah.
But I think that if you are staying healthy, staying engaged, your spirit is alive, and especially if you're focusing on building meaningful relationships, friendships, business partnerships, colleagues, family, romance, everything, then like you are setting yourself up for a secure future. I think that the most fragile creature is someone who has dedicated so much of their life to work that their body has decayed, their relationships have atrophied, there's not many of them, and then they hit this retirement age, and it just takes like one, broken hip, one divorce, one, big negative life event to like bring it all down and to shatter it.
Yeah. Bill Burr, the comedian, I think he's pretty funny. He's 50 now. I think his last special was like drop dead age. He's like, I'm at drop dead age. I could just drop dead at any moment. I mean, that's true. At a certain point, anything can happen. I mean, we have a friend who, had a brain aneurysm in her late 30s, I think, and she survived. But, like these things happen. And I mean, it's important to think about these. I mean, a lot of this comes back to, the age-old sort of how much are you living for the future versus how much are you embracing the now and the present. For you, do you have certain spiritual beliefs or personal beliefs that sort of align with some of the values that are ingrained into the dirtbag rich lifestyle?
That's a great question, Jason. No one's asked me that yet. No, I don't follow any particular system or philosophy to a T. I mean, I decided at age 14 I'm an atheist, and that hasn't really shifted. But I'm very interested in Buddhism and broadly like Eastern philosophies. But I've even like read great books in recent years about like medieval Christian like mystic monks and nuns, and or people, especially like these kind of wanderer of the earth types who shun all sorts of material security in order to kind of wander around and spread their message a bit. Someone who I profile in the book is my old college friend Jeff, who now has taken a different name as an ordained Buddhist monk, and he is a wandering monk. And he says, I interviewed him for a newsletter thing I was writing, and he told me, yeah, what matters to me is that people in the world see someone who has this deep sense of like inner peace and unshakability. And that is what I'm giving to the world, is I'm out there and people can see what I'm doing, even though I have no possessions, even though I have to beg for my food every morning. I'm camping out sometimes if no one offers me a place to stay. And that really touched me. And this is not a common thing to do in Buddhism. Most Buddhist monks and nuns are living in a monastery or nunnery and actually have a very Groundhog Day-like existence. They have a lot of security within that context. And so I admire these people who will step out of the bounds of whatever security they could otherwise have to be a sort of living by example type person. And that's something I've tried to embody. And I feel like that connects me to my work with teenagers. And especially as a young person at school, I felt like the teachers who were teaching did not practice the thing that they were teaching. The science teachers were not scientists, or maybe they were once a long time ago. The English teachers were not necessarily writing novels. And I was like, how do I get in touch with the people who are actually doing cool stuff in this world? And so for me, continuing to be a person who mostly lives without a home base, does a lot of traveling, a lot of outdoor adventure stuff, being able to then go work periodically with teenagers and be like, hey, I was just cycling down in Chile, and here's a story from that. And not because I'm trying to be didactic or, instill some specific lesson. I actually don't like anyone who, positions himself as a guru, but rather just be like, hey, here's a story from my life. Kind of like I'm like this cool uncle who's dropped into your family dinner. And it's like, hey, I just finished doing this cool thing. And I'm not saying you have to do this, but the kids are looking at each other like, whoa, this is possible. Like, this guy doesn't seem crazy. Yeah. And so it all wraps in together. But this is another reason why I don't want to work full time, Jason, because like I need time to go do the stuff that's meaningful and purposeful to me for my own inscrutable reasons. And then I can go back and I can share that with young people. It all works.
Yeah. And then you have the stories, and it's a part of your job to go do these things when it comes down to it, right?
I resist that framing. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. This is one reason why I want to be self-employed. No one's going to tell me what's part of my job.
I apologize. I overstepped my bounds.
Well, you're not my boss, so don't worry. Yeah.
No, I just be like, well, when I think about it, I have to reframe sometimes when I'm in the middle of a work day and I want to go take a walk. And I'm like, actually, I get tons of ideas when I'm out on my phoneless walk or my phoneless run or whatever. I need to get away from that stuff. And that's part of what I need to foster my creativity. I know that. Like, not necessarily, I don't do it to be productive, another form of productivity. It's more like I need this space to support my creativity, basically.
Yeah. Well framed.
So let's get some advice for travel and adventuring. You've sort of briefly touched, oh yeah, I've been on these cycle tours all over. I mean, share some of the things that you've done, man, so people can get an idea of some of the cool, grand adventures you've done. And then I want to hear some of your best advice for more outdoorsy type of adventures for somebody that maybe doesn't consider themselves like an extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the record, I don't consider myself an extreme outdoorsy or athletic person. I'm an enthusiast, but I quit the Pacific Crest Trail. I'm not. There's a reason I don't optimize for fastest known times or personal records. I'm very middling, and I'm happy to be there. Well, I've written a lot about my trips and adventures on my website on blakebowles.com and also on the newsletter Adventures of Blake. So there's like fresh stuff there. The stuff I've been into the most is trail running, backpacking, and in recent years, cycle touring. And partner dance is also an extremely big thing in my life right now. I don't put that in the realm of outdoor activity, but it's definitely physical. It's highly social. It's quite adventurous. So I can talk about that separately. As far as the outdoorsy stuff, I have been seriously enamored with the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. That is still the best mountain range in the world and the most friendly and accessible mountain range for anyone who wants to get into more serious backpacking or trail running. I've spent a lot of my time in Lake Tahoe, that region, but also hiked all over the mountain range. New Zealand has been a place where I've done a lot of pretty epic trail runs because you can just choose. They have this whole system of great walks there, these kind of famous long distance walking paths that people will backpack and you'll stay at huts along the way, but you can also just run those great walks. And I'm a big fan of doing things on established walking paths that are not walking. So back 2022, a friend and I rode bikes along the Camino de Santiago, but we started in Santiago and we rode east. So actually the Camino Francés, the most popular Camino de Santiago. So we were going upstream against the sea of walkers who were going towards Santiago. And my friend brought, it was supposed to be salmon costumes because we were going to be salmon swimming upstream, but he couldn't find salmon costumes. So he brought shark costumes instead. And so we were riding bikes, often in shark costumes, against the tide of walkers. And that was just like a really fun and also outdoorsy and cultural event. Because imagine it's like day 14 of walking the Camino de Santiago. And you're like, okay, just another day. It's kind of a bit Groundhog Day-ish maybe. And then you see someone on a bicycle in a shark costume riding towards you, rings their bell, waves at you, and then is gone. And just adding that little spark of weirdness, of like wonderful weirdness to someone's day, it really lit me up. And finally, for broader bicycle touring, right now I'm at the beginning of a 6-month bicycle tour in the U.S. and starting in New England. Then I'm flying over to Colorado, and we'll be riding and actually giving talks about dirtbag-rich in some cool mountain towns in Colorado, Utah, California. And we'll end up in the Pacific Northwest in August and September. And I would like to say that all of these adventures are very meaningful to me, but what has absolutely captured my heart most recently is partner dance, and especially dancing in Europe and dancing in this community called Fusion. Because although I'm not outside and, under the sun and in the fresh air, it is this incredibly creative and often quite athletic petri dish for creating something brief that is a beautiful thing with other people that will never exist again. This community plays a wide variety of music. It's not like all the same vibes, like it's all swing music or all tango music or salsa. You get a little bit of everything. You get very creative and talented people showing up. And you will go for a full weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, dancing until 3 a.m. And as someone who normally wakes up very early and goes to bed early, this is very uncharacteristic for me. But I'm also a big fan of partner dance because when you struggle to make adult friends in your 20s or 30s or beyond, because everyone's involved with their significant others or their jobs or their kids, partner dance has proven itself to be this realm where you can still meet really cool other adults and share meaningful moments with them. That is not, going on a multi-week travel or outdoor adventure. That just requires like a really special circumstance for most people. But you can meet cool people through partner dance who are available to, hang out with you for a night or for a weekend and then go back to their much more normal life.
Yeah.
And so
nice.
It's really rounded things out for me. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I mean, finding a community like that around an activity you're passionate about, that's always a great in for travelers. I think I've talked to other people who, they're into whatever it is, improv comedy or dance or whatever, and they can show up to these local meetups and just have an immediate connection with these locals.
Almost anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. Yeah.
It's a passport.
It's really cool. And when you say partner dance, you mean like that's just two people dancing? That can mean anything. Tango, swing, waltz.
Broadly, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It means improvised, not choreographed. Partner means lead and follow, so there are roles.
Okay,
but this community that I'm in called Fusion is very flexible with the roles. It's not assumed that men lead and women follow. There's just a lot of flexibility and integration of lots of different styles, which is why it's called Fusion.
Cool. Awesome. Be careful out there to biking through the States. They're not known for their bike trails,
No, but I found that drivers are overwhelmingly friendly and respectful in the States. I have not had scary experiences.
Nobody's thrown a drink on you yet or anything.
No, and I'll throw a free copy of Dirtbag-Rich back into their passenger side window if that happens.
One more thing before we wrap up. Maybe this is a good way to end it, and then I want to ask for your final sort of words of wisdom. One concept we didn't talk about is this freedom from and freedom to. And since freedom was such a hot topic here in today's show, I thought that maybe that might be a good place to sort of let you tie this one up. That concept.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Well, I just want you to introduce people to the concept. And I feel like that encapsulates quite a bit of the dirtbag-rich ethos.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really old distinction in discussing what freedom means. And on the political or, national politics level, freedom from would be like freedom from hunger, freedom from oppression. It's like your freedom to not be overly, constrained. And then freedom to is specifically what you are allowed to do. And it's more like forward looking. And my reason for integrating this into the book is that you really need to have both to have this meaningful sense of freedom and this dirtbag-rich ethos that I'm promoting. You need to have both the push and the pull factor. I think there's a lot of people who are just looking for freedom from their crappy boss, freedom from rent payments, freedom from, an oppressive relationship. And in the same way, I've met a lot of kids who are like, I hate school so much, or I don't want to do this homework. And I'm like, cool. What do you want to do instead? Imagine we snap our fingers and all of those constraints are removed. What do you want to do with the time of your life and the energy that you have? Given that it's not a magical genie, you are the same person, you have the same resources. What do you want to do? And that's a much harder question to answer. And I feel like that is what often drives people back onto the conventional path, whether it's school or work or whatever else, because at least there, someone is telling you what to do. And so it's easy to imagine freedom from, kind of modifying that. But it's much harder to imagine how you're going to spend your time. It's easy to imagine running away to a foreign country and like, okay, you're there. It's nice weather out. You're sitting down. Maybe someone's serving you some drink. I don't know. And it's like, now what do you do? What is your purpose? What are you fighting for? Who are you connecting with? What's the freaking point? And like, that's where the hard work is. That's why there's no blueprint for this. It's like, I'm not going to answer that for you. I got some suggestions. I got some examples, but you got to figure that out for yourself. That's the responsibility part.
So how do you want to wrap this one up? You got some final words of wisdom? I mean, those were great. I mean, you want to issue a challenge to somebody? I mean, which I should remind people, blakebowles.com seems like maybe the best, if we're going to have one call to action, maybe the best place to go, because you have sort of links to everything there. But of course, we'll link up to Unschooled Adventures and the book and everything like that in the show notes.
I have a call to action for you, Jace. And this applies to you too.
Okay.
Which is, I think because I've done some podcasting before also and done writing. I just think that the easiest thing to do these days, which is also very intimidating, is to like bust through the wall of like, this is a person who's producing content online, or a podcast or a book or a newsletter, and like, I am a consumer of this. It's like I am in a consumption relationship here. I'd like to say that we are all in a two-way relationship here. And so something that I really love is when someone reads something that I wrote, or maybe listens to something that I said, or they come to a talk in real life, and then they raise their hand, or they send an email, or they send a DM, and they're like, hey, I want to challenge you on one of these ideas. Like, maybe this thing you're saying that you're making it seem easy is not going to work for these people, or you haven't considered this other factor. I love when we go from this like very removed consumption relationship into like interaction between people about ideas. And so I just love it. And this is my call to action, which is if you listen to this, or if you read my book or one of my articles, and you're like, man, he's got part of it, but he's really not seeing this other piece of the equation, or he's really missing something, or he's deeply misguided and ignorant, like, please reach out to me, send me an email, or send me a message through some platform, and do the same for for you, Jason.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much
I
hate
get that
mail
sometimes.
you get.
No, I wouldn't call it
You
hate
do.
mail, like if it's constructive, I mean, I definitely have people written in and corrected me on different things, or said this guest was off on this topic because of this, and this reason. And we've even had some of those people come on to give sort of the counterbalance, the other side of that, if you will. It's important. I mean, this was the promise of I love that that's the call to action there, Blake, because you're the first one to ever make that the call to action, just so you know. Wasn't that the promise of the internet and all this stuff? It was that it's going to foster relationships, allow us to communicate with each other, like help evolve ideas and share and things like that. That's sort of the idealistic version of what the internet was supposed to be. So you're just saying, let's go back to what it was really intended for in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's never left. It's just we get caught up in the metrics. How many people viewed this episode, to monetization, stuff like that. No, like, ask yourself, did I touch someone sufficiently, or like maybe provoke someone sufficiently that they then reached out to me and we started some meaningful dialogue, even if that's just a couple emails going back and forth. Like, yeah. So there you go.
Thanks,
please reach out.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, listen, we don't get like a lot of warm, sunny days in Norway. I have one right now, but I'm here with you,
Jason,
because this is the purpose, right? To like have these conversations and share them. I really think they matter. So I appreciate you taking your time to like reach out, and then, let me, send the book, let me read it, and just to be able to discuss some of the ideas, and now getting to share that with everybody. I think the stories matter, and I think perspectives, and considering, different lifestyles and all of the stuff we talked about. I believe it matters. So thanks for contributing to the sort of community dialogue here. Yeah, I appreciate you, man. We're gonna do it in person next time, right?
We are. Sunny day in Norway. It's gonna happen.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, and best of luck on the bike tour and the book tour.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, buddy. There you have it. Thank you to Blake Bowles for stopping by the show. Of course, blakebowles.com, and Dirtbag-Rich is the book. High freedom, low income, deep purpose. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Feel free to drop me a line anytime, jason@zerototravel.com, or just sign up for the community newsletter over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. It is free. One of my big takeaways here that I wanted to leave you with was what Blake mentioned about retirement being a calculated bet. I think it's worth highlighting one more time. We can make an assumption that we're going to save a bunch of money and retire, and we'll have that money. We'll be healthy enough to travel, and all of those things that are sort of baked in to that idea, right? And that's a gamble. I think it's easy to forget that everything is a gamble, right? I mean, perhaps taking a year off to travel is a gamble. You're maybe gambling your ability to continue in a particular career, or there are other things in your life at stake. But not going is a gamble as well. And oftentimes you don't know what you're gambling. Maybe you would have met the love of your life, right? Or you would have found a new career path or something else. It's hard to say. Or bad things can happen on the road too, of course. So there's no one-sided bet, really. It's really important, I think, as we come out of this one to remember, are there really any quote-unquote safe choices? Everything's a bit of a gamble. And fortunately, in my life, I've always gambled on leaning towards the things that I enjoy as much as possible and continuing on with those things, even if on the surface, it may not always feel like the smartest move. An example in my own life is continuing to live this nomadic life as a touring professional, traveling around and working when I wasn't really building a career. I was sort of staying on the same level, and I could have looked at that as a negative thing. But I just, in my heart, wanted to keep traveling and doing this career I was in. And without all that, I never would be doing what I'm doing right now with the podcast. I never would have lived that nomadic life for so long. I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of different things in my life. So I didn't really analyze that as a calculated bet. But, everything you do, every choice has its pros and cons, of course. And it's just important to remember, sometimes we take a look at certain decisions and just assume that, oh, that's the safe thing or that's the smart thing to do. But does that make it the right thing? And does that mean that you're not making a gamble or still making a gamble or a bet? I just thought that was worth mentioning. I didn't mean to ramble on that topic too much, but I thought it was worth highlighting coming out of this one. And I'm going to leave you with a quote now to let you go about your day. Before I do want to say we are now a proud member of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. And if you want to check out some of their other awesome shows, you can simply go to airwavemedia.com. It's exciting to be a part of a podcast network. Haven't done this before. This is a new thing, and we're excited to be a part of it. So they've got a wonderful family of shows, and we're super proud to be a part of their family of shows. Now, let me leave you with a quote from Bob Iger, who said, "The riskiest thing we can do is just maintain the status quo." Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.